Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Winners and Whiners NFL 2023 Roundtable Show. I'm here, Mason Folz, one of your hosts today, also with the Steamroller. You can see him down in the bottom of the screen. Little wave there. He's back. He's ready to go, and he's excited to start dominating these NFL games. We're on to week 3. Week 2 was a blast. The Cowboys, they continued to roll. The Dolphins, probably one of the best teams. The 49ers and the Chiefs. Well, Steehn, you know how they're playing. How the Chiefs looking?
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, they're still winning a lot better than my team. I'm going to hold that one there. And then we also had the Bills. Chris King, you're still there?
Yep.
You can see him there magically. He's pictures disappeared, but he might be back. We also have Tom Marcina. How you doing? Macrina, sorry about that. Introduce yourself there. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me on.
And up in the top right corner, we have Mr. Reichel, Scott Reichel himself. How are you doing, Scott?
Yeah, doing pretty well. One of my teams, even though their record might be better than yours, their season might be over because they lost a guy 4 offensive plays into the season. So I'm going to leave it at that. So, yeah, it could be better, could be worse, I guess. But we're going through it at the moment, right?
Nope.
Still love this. One of my teams. What is this crap? Are you in
I'm
third
just being
grade?
honest.
You have to like multiple teams?
Well, the way that I look at it is that both of my teams have been bad for a while or irrelevant to actually winning a Super Bowl. So it's not like I'm cherry picking good teams. So there's that in my defense.
No, it's hard to cherry pick from bad teams. I will fully agree with that. As last year I was a Buffs fan, and I'm still a Buffs fan, and I'm also a Broncos fan. As that hurts. I'm not gonna lie. Week 2. Straight dagger to the heart, but we're going to get over it. We're going to forget about the Broncos completely. We're going to move on. So let's start looking into these games. We wanted to remind you guys to head over to the Winners and Whiners website. Check out all of our free daily articles. We also have a promo code on this video you guys can use to get 25% off. That code is JF5EWW25. All you need at the end of checkout to take some money off the top before you win some more. So let's start diving into these week 3 games. I was going to look at Thursday first between the 1-1 Giants and the 2-0 49ers. Seeing that game at -10 right now. The total set at 44.5. Start with Scott Reichel. Who are you liking in this one, Scott?
So for this one, we know Barkley is most likely not going to play. He has an ordinary ankle sprain, whatever that means, so he'll be out for a couple weeks. Giants had a miracle win against Arizona, so there's 2 ways to look at it. On one hand, nice comeback. On the other hand, why are you down 20 points to Arizona in the third quarter? That's the other way to look at it. So then I think I'm going to lean to the Niners here at home on a short week. Barkley does so much for that offense, and we know that the Niners defense is still one of the best units in the league. I thought the Niners were pretty good against the Rams. They really weren't that great, and Nakua in the overall passing game for the Rams did have some success. I do think that the Niners will look to button up a little bit, but we saw the Giants defense struggle for 3 quarters against Arizona and Josh Dobbs. I do think that the Niners should dominate up front. The Giants defense has really not been great, and with Barkley being out, I have too many questions. I'm going to go with the Niners, and I am going to lean to the under in this game. I think the under is going to be my main play. I'm not sure how the Giants are really going to score in this game, and we have seen a lot of ugly primetime football. What else is new? I'll lean to the under as well. With Barkley being out, I have too many questions.
Totally agree with that. How about you, Wari? What are you thinking? Tom?
Oh, sorry. I'm on the under as well. Pretty much the same thing. If this goes over, it's probably going to be because San Francisco put it over. But in the Thursday night games over the last 34, the under has gone 21, 11, and 1. Since 2018, it's 10-0. 7-3 ATS over. 5-4-1 to the over. I also lean to the 49ers. Same thing. With a spread of at least -10, the favorite is 23, 10, and 1 ATS, 31 and 3 straight up. So I no Saquon Barkley. I agree. I think they have to pay all their attention to Daniel Jones, and I don't think Daniel Jones is that good. He's going to have problems here. San Francisco defense is strong.
I like that. How about you, Chris King?
I don't think you can have any faith in the Giants at this point. We've seen their receiving core be absolutely terrible. everybody was high on Isaiah Hodgins when they signed him off the practice squad from Buffalo last year. He might turn into a good receiver, but outside of that, you got Darren Waller, who was banged up going into last week. He's going to be even worse shape this week. 49ers don't let the tight ends beat them either. As we saw, Tyler Higbee was a non-factor in week 2. Freiermuth was pretty much a non-factor in week 1. Without Barkley, you're relying on Matt Breida and Gary Brightwell to run the ball. I don't want to touch either one of those guys. I think this one will end up over the total because, you can get the 35-10 and still beat the number. I said the same thing with the Rams on Sunday. We know San Francisco is going to score at least 30 points. You don't need a ton from the Giants to go over the mark. I think this is a blowout. San Francisco covers, but I think it ends up over the number by a point or two.
Like that. And last but not least, the Steamroller.
Yeah, I'm not going to touch the total here. I could actually see this one going over the total simply because the Giants are likely going to be playing from behind most of the day, and they're not going to be able to run the football like everybody else has said. That only leaves one option, and that's throwing the ball down the field. So when you've got Daniel Jones throwing 3 out of 4 downs, one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to get some yardage or he's going to throw picks, and that's going to turn him over in favorable field position. I'm instead going to look at the Niners here and the Niners' ability to run the football successfully. They have been absolutely outstanding, averaging 5.7 and 5.5 yards per game on the ground in their first 2 contests against the Rams and the Steelers. 2 defenses that I believe are better than the Giants. The Giants' rush defense has been particularly porous, giving up 151 yards to who? The Arizona Cardinals and James Conner. Yikes. It's going to be a long day for the G-men. I think the Giants cover this, the Niners cover this number quite easily.
Yep, I agree with the 4 of you. I'm sticking with the Niners -10 as well. I think their defense is simply too good. And even though the Giants had that miraculous comeback win, again, it was against the Cardinals. Wasn't too much to be proud of, as I don't think they ever should have gone down by that much in that game. So nice win for them last week, but I think they're going to get put in their place by the 49ers on Thursday night. Now, let's start to dive into these morning or earlier NFL games. I know we're all over the country with our time zones. Early for me, 1 p.m. for a lot of you East Coasters. The first game on our schedule, the Chargers versus Vikings. Right now, I've got the Chargers -1, but it's gone back and forth. The Chargers are 0-2. So are the Vikings, and the total's set at 54. Reichel, who you betting on?
I'm going to take the over in this game. There's no chance I'm taking a side. I don't trust either of these teams. Both their head cases. I'm not going to bother. I like the over. I don't trust either defense to do anything in this game. We saw on Thursday that the Vikings defense still not great. We saw that for last year as well. The Chargers, with a defensive-minded head coach, can't stop Ryan Tannehill, so you can connect the dots there. I don't trust either defense. I think you're going to see a lot of points in this game. Both offenses have been solid. We saw the Chargers give up 466 passing yards to Tua in week 1. I think Jefferson might go crazy. I think that Herbert should do well as well. If I had to pick a side, I probably would have leaned to Minnesota because of extra prep time playing on Thursday, but there's really not much tearing these teams apart. So I am going to go with the over. I know there's money on it, but this game could break 60. It wouldn't shock me. I'll go with the over, and I'll lean to Minnesota with extra prep time.
Tom, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with the over as well. Both of these teams are sloppy. I expect to see a lot of turnovers here. Chargers defense hasn't really pressured the quarterback at all, which should give Kirk Cousins time to get the ball down the field. I expect Minnesota to run the ball a little more, but same thing as Scott. I think that both of these teams get into the 30s.
Chris, how about yourself?
I think you have to think this game's going to go over the total. But you look at it, Minnesota's turned the ball over 7 times in 2 games, but they get to face a Chargers team that couldn't stop anybody when it comes to throwing the ball. Like Reichel said, you let Tannehill throw 2 passes down the field, one for 70 yards to Treylon Burks, one for 48 to Chris Moore. And now you got to deal with Justin Jefferson and the rest of the Vikings receiving corps, which has been pretty good. The big problem for Minnesota is they can't stop the run, but the problem for the Chargers here is Austin Eckler might not play again. And if he doesn't play, we saw how they struggled running the ball last week, where Joshua Kelly finished with, 39 yards. A healthy Eckler would make a big difference in this one, but if he doesn't go, I think I'd have to lean towards Minnesota if I was picking a side. But I agree with both Tom and Reichel that this game ends up over the total. It's going to be a shootout like we saw in Week 1 with the Chargers and the Dolphins.
I can see that. How about you, Steamroller? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm gonna pass on the total, although I will shade to the over there. But I like the Vikings here, mainly because I don't think Eckler's going to play. Staley said there's no timetable for his return, and I don't know if you've talked about it or not yet, Mason. But we are taping this on Tuesday, so
Yep.
A lot of these picks, you've got injury questions. Make sure you check your final lines before you take what we say on Tuesday afternoon as the gospel. And this is a perfect example of one of those games where Eckler is going to be a huge factor, because without Eckler, Joshua Kelly, you mentioned 39 yards rushing, just one target. Kelly has played 8 games without Eckler on the field. He's never scored a touchdown. Minnesota, however, they can't run the football either. They are last in rushing yards per game, and they are 30th in yards per carry. But Kirk Cousins, you like that? Yeah, we do. Second in passing yards and third in yards per attempt. And this Chargers defense, somebody talked about it earlier, they are not good again. They are last in yards per game giving up in the air, and they are last in yards per attempt by over a yard. Kirk Cousins going to feast, baby. Give me the Vikings at home. Getting a point at home in the Crystal Ship. Sign me up.
One other thing too, Scott, not to interrupt you, Mason, is that the Chargers are 3-7 since Eckler was drafted in games that he doesn't play.
Ooh.
So that's another factor you have to look into. Like we said, he's such a versatile part of that offense. Without him, like you said, Kelly had one target. He hasn't gone over that 39 yards he had was a career high in a game that Eckler didn't play in. So
Yeah,
there you go.
They can't run the ball without him.
Yep, I completely agree. And I did want to second what the Steamroller said there. This is being recorded on Tuesday, so if there are any injuries or reports, make sure to check those and line up with what we said. So make sure to check that out. And with that Chargers versus Vikings game, they took the words right out of my mouth. Again, I like the Vikings. Personally, I have a hard time betting on this Chargers defense. I don't think they're very good. They haven't been very good the last few seasons. I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a big day. And then I also had a little side note on this game. I'm taking Justin Jefferson to score anytime. Reichel touched on that earlier, but it's been held scoreless this season, and I think this is a great opportunity for him to get into the end zone. Now, after that game, we'll head over to another earlier game. The Bills are -6.5 on the road against the Washington Commanders. The 2-0 Washington Commanders, might I add. This total is at 44.5. Right, Shell? Who you liking?
I'm going to lean to Buffalo, but I actually love the over in this game. I see a lot of points here. I know that they ended up stopping the Raiders, but the Raiders' passing game with Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't really scare me at all. I got to give props to Bieniemy and Washington's offense because they've been really good. And Denver's defense has been a bit underwhelming so far this season. Having said that, when you score that many points in Denver, I got to be impressed. And the point is, I do think that Washington's defense gave up really 27 points. The Hail Mary is the Hail Mary at the end, but still they let Denver score 21 points in about the first quarter and a half in that game. So I'm not sold on their defense. As for the Bills, I think the defense is pretty good, but that offense is really good. I definitely expect to see a lot of points in this game. Buffalo can score 30, maybe get yourself a close game. I am going to lean to the over, but I will lean to Buffalo. No offense to the Commanders. I do think this team has been somewhat impressive so far, but you're looking at who they played against so far. They played against the Cardinals. They almost lost that game, and played Denver. Almost lost that game. Two teams that aren't that great. No offense, Mason. It's a big step up in competition. I'm going to go with Buffalo, but I will also lean to the over.
Tom, how about you?
Yeah, so both of these teams look like they were slow starters, not scoring a lot first half. Both did decent. So I'm looking at the first half under. You can find it at 22.5 at -115. I think Washington at home, they're coming off being 2-0. They're going to want to show how good their defense is against this Buffalo team. I don't know that Buffalo's going to be able to score so quickly. I think so. Washington starts slow, ends better. I also lean to the Bills side. I think 6.5 is too much.
Chris, how about you? I know you got an opinion on this one.
Just to counter what Rye said about Buffalo not being able to score against Washington, these two teams met 2 seasons ago, and I know it's a different team now, but Allen carved up that team to the tune of 358 yards and 4 touchdowns in a game that was a blowout. You look at what Buffalo did, they're running a lot more 12 personnel now with 1 back and 2 tight ends. Now that you got Dalton Kincaid in there, it creates matchup problems. We saw it with the Raiders. Max Crosby was a non-factor in that game, didn't generate a pressure or a sack or anything like that. I get that the Commanders have a decent defensive line, but their offensive line is terrible. We haven't seen a ton out of Terry McLaurin, which disappoints me from a fantasy perspective. And Sam Howell, he's still a young quarterback. He's still trying to find his way. This is his 4th or 5th career start now. That's a veteran Buffalo defense. They look motivated with Sean McDermott calling the plays now that Leslie Frazier's not there. While the Raiders, like Reichel said, not a great team. I'm not convinced the Commanders are that great either. As he said, they beat Arizona by 4 at home in a game where they didn't cover the line. And then they scraped by Denver in a game that they probably should have lost. I'm going to take Buffalo, and I agree with Reichel. It ends up over the total. This is probably going to be a 34-20 type of game, something like that.
Steamroller, what are you thinking?
I think Chris is a homer, is what I think. You talk about
that was a fact. That's an opinion?
You talk about the schedule that the Commanders have faced. Let's be honest. Neither one of these teams has faced an offense that's in the top half in either yards per game or points per game. So they've each played 2 cupcakes when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. Buffalo is 5th in points allowed. However, the Washington defense actually allows less yards per attempt in rushing, less yards per attempt in passing. Washington can flat get after the quarterback, tied with Dallas sack lead with 10 sacks on the season. Buffalo does give up a ton of sacks. They give up 7 sacks. They've given up 7 sacks so far. Washington also gives up sacks. The play that I really like in this game, and I'm going to go the other way, guys. I really like the under 44.5 in this one. I think there's going to be some sacks at inopportune times to stall out drives. I think these teams are going to attempt to run the football a little bit. And I think at the end of the day, this one stays under the total 44.5.
It could be interesting. I'm expecting a really good game in this one. Obviously, I think I'm going to have to go with the Bills minus 6.5, not because I just don't like the Commanders right now, but simply because I think the Bills, yes, had that slow start in week 1, but people talked about that a lot. Josh Allen heard it. He's now motivated. Last week, he didn't turn the ball over. I think he's going to really focus on that through the rest of the season. He's going to keep his offense on the field. They're going to continue to score throughout this game. The Bills are going to end up covering that 6.5-point spread. Now, for our next game, we're going to head down to Green Bay as the Saints are taking on the Packers. The Packers are a 2-point favorite. That total set at 42.5. Reichel, who you like in this one?
For this one, it's really a tough game. It's really tough because I don't know if I like either of these teams. You got to watch one of them play last night. Were any of you impressed? Not really. I mean, the defense is good. There's that.
Yeah.
A lot of people think Derek Carr is a waste of money and maybe Jameis should play more. You're looking at the Packers, though, and Jordan Love's been good for the most part. He also hasn't really been asked to do much. Aaron Jones is still injured. We'll see if he plays or not. But Watson might come back. We'll see for Green Bay's purposes. But I think I'm going to lean to Green Bay. You're going to take a dome team on a short week playing outdoors, usually just a good scheduling spot. I find it fascinating that the Packers are favored in this game, despite losing to the Falcons. I find that a bit weird. I'm going to lean to Green Bay. I think I'm going to lean to the under in this game, though, because the Saints can't score. They have all the weapons, but with a defensive-minded head coach, the offense just has not looked sharp. Jamal Williams got injured. I know Jones had 2 touchdowns, but the ground game's a question mark. I'm going to lean to Green Bay, and I'll lean to the under. Give me an ugly 20-17 type game.
I like that. Tom, how about you? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree with the under. Green Bay has had 2 over games. The one was in the dome. New Orleans on the short week, so I think that helps as well. Green Bay's had trouble without Aaron Jones there. I don't know if he's playing. I don't think he is, but they're going to have trouble running the ball. I was impressed with what Love has done, but this Saints defense is really good. They look great the last 2 weeks they played. So I like the under here.
Yeah, I can see that. Chris, how about you?
I agree with the game going under. I also think that, with the fact that Williams is dealing with that hamstring injury, you might not see him. That leaves Tony Jones. This could turn into the Taysom Hill game. You saw him run the ball a bunch yesterday in the second half of that game. He could be a big factor here, and that's something that Green Bay doesn't necessarily scheme for. We saw him get carved up by Atlanta to the tune of 211 yards on the ground last week. They gave 122 to the Bears in week one, even though they won that game convincingly. I agree with Reichel. I'm not sold on the fact that Green Bay is favored here. If I had to take a side, I would take the points with New Orleans. I like Derek Carr a little bit more.
He looks
than
like David recently.
Yeah, with the beating that he was taking last night with Carolina's pass rush. Green Bay doesn't have that kind of attack defensively, though. They've been kind of soft. They've been relying on Quay Walker and company trying to make plays in the back seven. I think that New Orleans could win this one on the road, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair, like Reichel said, and it's going to stay under the number.
I could see that. Steamroller?
Yeah, I'm going to go against historical trends here. I know you've got a dome team traveling on a short week to a sometimes hostile outside venue, although in September should be okay as far as weather goes. But I think we've got the wrong team favored here. Neither of these teams is in the bottom. The defense has been very good for the Saints. I've been impressed with this defense. The offense obviously still has a ways to go, but this Packers offense has been worse. Put up just 224 total yards against Atlanta. Come on now. To me, this comes down to two things: the battle of the defenses, the battle of the quarterbacks. I'll take the New Orleans defense over the Packers defense, and I'll take Derek Carr, warts included, over Jordan Love. I'll take the Saints. You want to throw me 2 points? I'll take them all day long.
I'm guessing you're on the under since you don't like either quarterback.
Yeah, I would lean under here. I don't love that. I'd like it better if it was 44. 42 and a half generates less interest for me, but I would lean under as well. I just don't think you're going to have much offense on either side, and I think the Saints will be able to do enough to take care of business. I'll take the Saints money line play here in real life, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of plus 110, plus 115, something like that.
By the way, some reports came out a couple minutes ago that Williams suffered a hamstring injury that, quote, might take some time to get back. So he's not going to play in this game.
He's on
that's why I'm saying you're probably going to be relying on Tony Jones. That's why I said it could be a Taysom Hill game, because Jones is the only running back on the roster that's healthy right now, because you don't get Kamara back until week 4. And Miller, I don't know what his situation is when they're projecting him to come back either.
I can't wait for the Mark Ingram rumors. I'm going to be really excited.
That will be awesome. No, it's going to
happen. But I wanted to mention that Williams is not going to play.
That's great to keep in mind. And with this game, I have a really hard time picking a side in this one. I was going to take the under again, as I think the Saints defense is legit. And I don't believe in Jordan Love and Derek Carr. Man, he had a lot of opportunities in their game last night against the Panthers, and he just continued to squander them. I think that trend's going to continue. And this total's going to stay under the trend, or stay under the total, not the trend. But the next game, it's going to get a little crazy. We're going to be talking about the Falcons as they travel to Detroit, as the Lions are 3-point favorites. This one's interesting. The total's set at 46.5. Who do we like in this one, Reichel?
I'm going to go with the Lions in this one. They lost a heartbreaker there to Seattle. Very fun game, but I can't say we were shocked that there was a high-scoring game. The Lions are the better team, in my opinion. You're looking at the Falcons, and I do love Bijan Robinson. I loved him in college as well, but I still don't think Desmond Ridder is any good. And I do think that it's not a coincidence that fantasy owners have been begging Kyle Pitts to get the ball for about 2 years, and they don't throw it to him because they don't trust their quarterback to throw the ball because Ridder isn't very good. I think that Jared Goff, I know that his interceptionless streak ended last week, but he's still been solid for the most part. They got St. Brown, got a bunch of weapons, and I do think even though Montgomery got hurt, that's why they drafted Gibbs in the first round, I just don't trust Atlanta's offense enough. I think that when you're that one-dimensional and you're that conservative play calling-wise, you can't afford to get into potentially high-scoring games And Detroit's offense is good enough to score a bunch of points in a dome. So I'm going to go with Detroit. The total, I have no opinion on because Atlanta isn't really built to play many high-scoring games, but it's mostly a quarterback difference here. I don't think Ritter's that good, and I think that the coaching staff realizes it. Jared Goff's grown on me for the last couple of years. I'm actually going to lean to Detroit.
Like it, Tom?
Yeah, I usually like to fade the team that's playing in Europe the next week, but I'm going to stick with the over here. I think Atlanta is a big play team. So, yes, they run the ball a lot, but when they break off big runs, we all know that Detroit can score. If they play fast-paced like they did against Kansas City, both teams should be up in the 30s.
I like that. Chris?
I'm actually going to lean the other way. I'm going to lean to the Falcons. I don't trust Detroit's defense to stop anyone. And, if they can't stop the run, which, granted, Kansas City didn't run the ball because that's not their style. Seattle didn't have to run the ball because they just threw it all over Detroit. You look at it, and, the fans, if they run the ball with Robinson and Algier and chew up clock and make it where Detroit has to score, not on every position, but almost every position to keep up, might neutralize the fact that Ritter's not that great. And let's not forget, if Arthur Smith wants to change things up, he's got a decent backup quarterback that has started in this league and gotten to the postseason in Taylor Heineke, who can throw the ball, in which case, then Kyle Pitts might actually catch more than one pass a week. But until I see Detroit actually put together a cohesive defensive game plan, it's hard to like them in anything other than a shootout. So I'll take the points here. I think that the Falcons can hang close enough to have a chance to steal it late.
I can see that. Steen?
Yeah, so what the odds makers are telling us here, since Detroit is the home team and they're favored by 3, is that these teams on a neutral field are equal. I don't think there's a universe where that is true. I think this is a superior Lions team. Atlanta Falcons going to have to run the football to win. Detroit, so far, even though they haven't faced run-heavy teams, they are top 10 in rush defense, both in yards and yards per carry. Against this Detroit defense, Chris is right. The Chiefs have had some success, and the Seattle Seahawks had some success. Guess what? Mahomes and Geno Smith are not Desmond Ridder. That is a definite step down in weight class. And this is a Detroit team that wants to stretch the field. They want to throw the ball down the field. Jared Goff second in the league in yards per attempt so far. Atlanta pass defense has been okay so far, but they face Bryce Young and Jordan Love. We're going to find out what they're made of this week. And I don't think they're made of the sturdy stuff that we've seen in the first 2 weeks. Goff is definitely a step up in weight class for this team. I like the Falcons. I like the Lions at home laying the 3.
Now, let me flip that on you. Let me flip that on you real quick, Steen, because you said that the Falcons have faced Bryce Young and Jordan Love. By the same token, you're talking about the Lions being a top 10 run defense, but they faced the Chiefs and the Seahawks, 2 teams that didn't run the ball.
Well, the Seahawks last year ran the ball. Jury's still out if they have issues running the ball this year, but they have been a decent running team in the past.
And they're a team that wants to run the football. They're a team that wants to get down the field and run the ball. So
Seattle should try to run the ball. They have 40 running backs. They drafted Charbonnet during the offseason. I mean, they have running backs. It just hasn't worked out for them. But besides, Chris, it doesn't support his narrative. So why would he bring it up?
Well, that's why I countered it.
Well, I touched on it. Why do you counter something that I brought to the forefront? There's nothing to counter.
Well, you brought up about how the Falcons didn't face anybody on a pass defense, but the Lions didn't face anybody that runs the ball.
You know what? Kansas City will run the ball as long as they're successful. They're not a non-running team. They will run the football if the opportunity is there. And the Lions were able to stymie them pretty well. They did have CEH taking early snaps as opposed to Pacheco. So that makes a difference. I think Pacheco is the superior runner, but I think this Detroit defense, while not as bad as last year, they're not great, but I think they're much improved, especially against the run.
I will say I like Pacheco better than I like Edwards-Helaire.
I don't think CEH should be in the league. So yeah, I think
I would agree with that.
I was surprised he was on the roster this year. I'll be honest with you. I really thought they'd get rid of him.
the old Falcons and the Lions. Either way, all I have to say is both teams have been decent to start, 2-0, 1-1. I definitely didn't predict that. The Lions, I think they're going to be extremely motivated to bounce back in this game. They got super amped up to go into Kansas City week 1. They were ready to roll. They came down a little bit against Seattle. Now their head coach is going to get them going again. I think the Lions are going to easily cover the spread at home against the Falcons. Now, in our next game, this one was weird to me. Not a big fan of this one, as the Titans are heading to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Cleveland's a minus 3-point favorite. Both teams are 1-1, and the total is set at 40. Reichel, what do you like with this one?
I'm going to lean under, but I actually like Tennessee, plus the points here. I'm not laying 3 on a short week with Deshaun Watson. That's just not happening. Like, I can't do that. And you're looking at Nick Chubb being injured. They might bring in Kareem Hunt, who hasn't actually seen action in about several months. There's a reason why he's still unemployed. There's a lot of teams in football. Nobody wanted him going into the year. So we'll see what happens. But with Chubb being out, Ford was good in relief. Kinda. It was misleading. He had one 70-yard run and really didn't do much for the rest of the game. But they can't protect the quarterback. Watson got sacked 6 times. Conklin's out for the year. He's one of their best offensive linemen, one of the best offensive linemen in the league. Tennessee is not good on paper, but it's a Vrabel team. They're good defensively. They can stop the run. They're going to force the other team to throw the ball, and I don't trust Watson throwing passes. Is Tannehill good? No, but I think that they're decent enough to win the turnover battle, and they'll find a way to win a classic, ugly Vrabel game. Once again, like 20-17, something really disgusting. I'm going to take Tennessee here because I'm not laying, once again, 3 with Watson. I think Watson at this stage in his career with all the distractions and the time off, it's pretty safe to say he's a bottom 10 quarterback in the league. There's really not as much separating these quarterbacks as you might think based on salary. So I'm going to go with the Titans here, plus the 3.
I like it. Tom?
Me too. I agree with all that. Watson's going to have trouble against this secondary with the Titans if he has to throw against them. I think they have to change up their whole game plan since Nick Chubb was the focus here. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a slugfest here too. But I think Titans cover the spread at 3.5.
I like it. Chris?
I agree with Reichel. The one thing I didn't agree with what Ryan said is worrying about the Titans secondary. The Titans were dead last in the league in pass defense last year. The 282 to the Saints in week 1, 281 to the Chargers last week. So probably the thing is, can they front 7 get pressure? Can Jeffrey Simmons get in there and break down the pocket? And Harold Landry and those guys. And I think so because, like Reichel said, losing Conklin is a big blow. But you still get Antonio and Teller in the middle of that offensive line. The Chubb injury is, let's face it, it's a game changer for the Browns because he's so versatile and so dynamic with the way he runs the ball. Ford, hope he's decent, like Reichel said. Kareem Hunt, if they get him, I don't know what he's going to give you. He'll give you a pass receiving threat.
For this week, though, how many snaps would he even take? Like Hunt wasn't with the team.
You'd have to think he'd only go for 10 or 15 snaps from him. I think you have to take Tennessee here. It might be first to 17 wins unless Cleveland gives up 2 defensive touchdowns like they did yesterday. But I'd lean towards Tennessee with the points and the under.
Steamroller?
Well, first, apologies for Chris's computer. I guess his Commodore 64 is kind of acting up today. So
I thought it was Windows 97.
No, actually, it's an Apple II Plus.
Oh, fancy.
I was playing Oregon Trail before this.
Yeah, this is a Browns team that I think Tom talked about really having to change focus here from a run first, run second, and probably run third team with Nick Chubb to putting more emphasis on Deshaun Watson, and nobody's going to come out well in that one. James Ford just 39 carries and 2 yards. Yeah, that's just not good. Watson not having a great season at all, picking up basically right where he left off last year when he sucked for the last 7 games or 6 games of the season. He is 30th so far in the season in yards per attempt, while Ryan Tannehill is a respectable 7th. You know, Derrick Henry is not the Derrick Henry of 2020, but he still had 1,540 yards last season rushing. And if you want to compare the 2 positions that are going to have the most impact in this game, I'll take Tannehill over Watson, and I'll take Derrick Henry over Jerome Ford. Give me a Titans.
And for the the fun of it, you can point out that Deshaun Watson had as many personal foul face mask penalties as he had touchdown passes this season.
He did have a lot of face masks last night. I thought he might get ejected on that one where he was scrambling around in the backfield, but
He shoved a ref in the process.
he did shove a ref.
It's kind of ironic, though, because the Steelers only won the game because he wasn't ejected, because he blew the game later on. So there you go.
I'll tell you what, he got his 15 yards worth on that face mask. You're never going to see
which
longer
one. He got his yards worth on both.
You're never going to see a longer series of just hanging on to the face mask than that scramble there to the left where he was flagged for his 15, getting his money's worth for sure. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a game I'm not going to watch, but I might bet on it. I like the Titans catching those points right here. Give me Tennessee.
I like that as well. I think I'm actually going to stick with the under 40 in this one. Don't trust either quarterbacks, and I like both defenses, so I'm going to keep it simple, ride with the under 40. Now with our next game, another interesting one, a division battle. The Texans are going to be traveling to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars as they are 9.5-point favorites. The total is set at 44. Reichel, who you like?
For this one, 9.5 is so many points for a Jacksonville team that scored 9 points last week. But Kansas City's defense has improved. I'll give him props there. But the thing is, I don't think Houston's any good. And I know that Stroud had a bunch of passing yards, but they were trailing for basically the entire game. So I do wonder how much of that was somewhat stat padding and how much of that was, I'd say, actual information I could use moving forward. On the bright side, Stroud looks better than all the other rookie quarterbacks, so there's that. But that's a pretty low bar. I think Jacksonville's going to look a lot sharper offensively because I don't think Houston's defense is that good. But Stroud has actually kind of impressed me. He has thrown no picks despite throwing the ball a lot. They can't run the ball, which is a serious problem with this team. I think I'm going to take the points. I don't feel great about it, but 9.5 does feel pretty steep. I still have too many questions involving Jacksonville because Jacksonville did beat the Colts by double digits because they had a goal line stand in the final minute where Indianapolis probably should have scored and should have covered, but they didn't, and Jacksonville ended up covering in the end. I just haven't been overly impressed by Jacksonville. I think the defense is a bit vulnerable. The offense is solid. They should score in this game. But I'm going to lean to Houston. I think 9.5 for a division game is a little bit too much. I'm going to take Houston plus the 9.5.
Tom?
Yeah, I agree here. Jags just had 5 yards per play against the Colts, 4.2 against the Chiefs. They only scored 17 points. This offense is not good. I feel the same way. This number is too big for me. A couple of trends. Houston is 2-0 against the spread versus Jacksonville over the last season. They're also 3-1 against the spread. That's over the last 3 seasons. 2-0 in Jacksonville. So I like Houston here. I'm actually going to wait to see if we can get a 10. I kind of feel like it's going to go the other way, but I'll take my chances.
I also forgot to mention, by the way, ETN got injured at the end of last week's game. I think it was cramping, so it might not be an issue for week 3, but keep an eye on it because ETN did get hurt at the end of the game.
That's a great point. Chris?
I have to go with Houston with points here. You look at Jacksonville. They don't sustain drives. They're 6-24 on third down, 1-for-5 on fourth down this season. They've only converted 3 of their 6 drives in the red zone. And realistically, how many weeks in a row are we going to sit here and hope that Jacksonville's defense gets 3 turnovers to keep them in the game? They had 3 against the Colts. They had 3 against the Chiefs. They didn't do anything with them against Kansas City. They get a turnover, they give it right back. I don't know what to make of the Jaguars. Everybody's hyped up about how they're going to win the AFC South and run away with it, but they didn't look good either of the first weeks of the season. And I agree with Reichel. I like what Stroud's done. He's on the ball 91 times already, and he's gotten smacked around, taking a lot of hits, been sacked 11 times. But they played last week -4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen. The fact that Stroud is still standing after that is a testament to what he can do. If they can get healthy, maybe they'll be able to run the ball, but they got to get more out of Dameon Pierce. 69 yards in 2 games and averaging 2.7 a carry is not going to get it done. But 9.5, way too many points until we see Jacksonville put together a more cohesive offensive performance. I'll take the points. And I think it's probably going to stay under the total, even though Houston has given up a bunch of points in the first 2 weeks.
384 passing yards despite missing more than half your starting offensive line. I know, once again, some of it could have come in garbage time. That's impressive no matter how you slice it.
That is very true. Steamroller?
I'm going the other way, guys. I'm taking the Jags to cover at home here. This is a Texans team that just cannot run the football. Nobody in the NFL averages less yards per carry than the Texans. Same Texans team lost by 11 to Indy. At home, same team Jags beat by double digits. That means the Jags win this one by at least 20. That's just math, boys. Give me the Jags minus 9.5.
I really thought I was going to be the only one that was going to take them. But like you said, I think the Texans' offensive line is just flat out horrible. And without an offensive line in the NFL, I don't think you can really move the ball efficiently. The Jags, I know that they haven't really lit it up, but I'm still buying into Trevor Lawrence. I think Ridley's going to have a big game. And I think the Jags are going to cover that 9.5-point number. Now our next game.
Pierce is going to have a big game. Watch out for his props overs.
Ooh, a little shout out for you. I like that. Next
We
game is a little
certainly do.
interesting. I don't know about this one either. The Patriots are 2.5-point favorites on the road against the New York Jets. 0-2 versus 1-1, and the over-under is at 37. What a whopping number there. Reichel, who you liking?
Well, as a Jets fan, I take pride in this. I don't take pride. No, they get killed by Belichick every year. Zach Wilson's 0 against Belichick. It's not going to change. I'm going to take New England. You can argue desperation. Both teams should be pretty desperate, but New England is on the verge of being 0-3 for the first time since probably before I was born. I'm going to lean to New England in this one. Mac Jones, I know people criticize because in the grand scheme of things, he hasn't really progressed. Just to be clear, he's significantly better than Zach Wilson, and it's not even close. Garrett Wilson also got hurt in the second half against the Cowboys, so I am curious what his status is going to be. Both defenses are solid. The Jets kind of got torched against Dallas, which makes sense. Dallas is one of the best teams in the league. But still, the point is they really didn't get many stops. And I do wonder, for the sake of this matchup, how good does the Jets' defense actually need to be for the Jets to have a shot? Because offensively, they have no chance in hell. And you're looking at what the Jets did against Dallas, one of the best defenses in the league. They had one broken covered slant pass for a touchdown for 68 yards. You take that play out, Zach Wilson had about 100 yards passing with 3 picks. I got to at least point out, Zach Wilson is not an NFL player. And I think Mac Jones is. I'm going to take New England. I think New England is the more fundamentally sound team. They'll win the turnover battle, which is the most important thing in a low-scoring game. I'm going to lean to the under. I'm still traumatized by the game-losing punt return touchdown in the meeting last year. But I see an ugly game. I'll take Mac Jones to look better than Zach Wilson, low bar. But until the Jets beat Belichick, I'm not going to pick them to beat Belichick. I think the last quarterback who beat him was Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think. It's been a long time. I'm going to take New England because they own the Jets every year.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the under here. As Scott said, both of these defenses carry their teams. I don't think any offense is going to do anything. Last 3 games they played against each other were unders. Again, if we see scoring, it may be from the defense rather than the offense here, kind of like Pittsburgh last night. But I like the under here, especially in a divisional game.
Chris?
Yeah, 14 straight losses for the Jets against Bill Belichick. And
I think it was Fitzpatrick. I wasn't joking. I think it was Fitzpatrick, the last Jets quarterback who beat Belichick.
I mean, like Reichel said, they had that broken coverage play where Wilson scored, and other than that, they looked horrible offensively. And we talked about it all last season too about Zach Wilson. He's not ready for. I was going to say he's not ready for prime time, but he's not ready for anything as far as the NFL goes. You got Breece Hall complaining about the fact that he only had 4 touches last week. That was a big thing in social media after the game. I don't know if you can trust either one of these teams to score more than 17 points. You'd have to take the under, and like Reichel said, until the Jets actually beat Bill Belichick, it goes back to the Ric Flair adage, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And right now, Belichick's the man, which leaves the Jets on the wrong side of the scoreboard for the 15th straight time when it comes to playing the Patriots.
steamroller?
Well, unlike the rest of you guys, I don't really give a damn what Adam Gase did against Bill Belichick. That doesn't really mean shit to me. This is a new team.
How long do you
with
think
Robert
Gase was
Saleh.
there?
What?
Saleh's been there for a few years already. How long do you think Gase was the coach?
No, 19 and 20.
All right. Just saying. He hasn't been there for a few years. Saleh hasn't had much more.
Well, he's still
success
part of that streak you guys are you quoting?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
is Todd Bowles, but we're not talking about him.
Well,
I'm just
you
saying
could-
Saleh's been around for a few years. He still hasn't beaten Belichick either. So it's not a coach thing. It's just a
it's
matter
his
of
it's his
Belichick.
third year. He's 0-4.
Okay.
All right. So I think that his best defense that they've had so far. And, the Jets' formula is simple. They have to keep Wilson clean, and they have to be able to run the football. Obviously, they couldn't do that against Dallas. But you guys putting this New England defense even in the same conversation as the Dallas defense is insanity to me. Patriots have just 4 sacks on the season. I think Zach Wilson is going to look respectable in this game. I think they're going to get their running game going. I'll take the Jets at home catching points. Home dog, yeah, I'll take it.
Respectable for Zach Wilson is completing 50% of his passes.
It could happen. Could happen.
I do want to point out, I am aware Dallas's defense is a lot better than New England's. Both defenses are above average, obviously. The Jets' offensive line, can we agree, is like a bottom 3 unit in the league? It might not be Houston bad, but is it bottom 3?
Hasn't been great so far. They've got some problems with the tackles, no question about that. I like their interior better than I like their tackles. I think
that's kind of my problem. If they move Judon around, you have Dwayne Brown maybe stopping him. We saw what Parsons did. I know Parsons is better than Judon, but I don't trust Wilson against Belichick, especially getting pressured pretty much every snap. That's the difference for me.
When I see Zach Wilson going back against Belichick's defense, it reminds me of the Monday night game a few years ago. Remember this with Sam Darnold, where he's
the ghost game.
The ghost game. That's what I see with Zach Wilson when he plays Belichick. You look at the game that Reichel referenced, where they lost on the punt return at the end of the game. Wilson was 9 of 22 for 77 yards. You're not going to win games if you can't put up at least triple digits in passing yards.
You have to have a credible running game, and I think the Jets are going to have that. Make the passing game work for the Jets. They got to be able to run the ball.
Am I being harsh, by the way, for saying that Zach Wilson just isn't an NFL player? Because I think we've all seen enough, and I don't think he belongs in the league. But we'll see. Am I being harsh? I don't see it.
We had it last year.
Yeah, I know he's supposed to be a backup, but if the point of being a backup is to trust bringing him into a game in last case scenarios, I don't trust bringing Wilson in for a last case scenario.
So you getting Carson Wentz?
I think Wentz is better than Zach Wilson. Then again, that tells you how low I am on Wilson. I don't think Carson Wentz is good either, but I'd rather have him than Zach Wilson.
Fair enough.
No, it could go either way, but after hearing all those stats from you guys, I think there's one pick that I really like in this one, and I'm going to take the under. I think that both defenses are going to be the reason that this game's boring. I don't really trust either starting quarterback, if I'm going to be honest, and I think both head coaches are going to game plan well enough to keep this game extremely low scoring. So I'm going to take the under 37 in this one, as that total is extremely low, and I got a weird feeling about that one.
If you had to watch either them or the Titans Browns, which game do you watch?
Neither. I
Good
don't
answer.
want to watch that.
Good
yeah.
answer. You watch Red Zone.
Yeah, exactly. Red Zone is where I'd go. The next game, I really don't even want to talk about this one. Pretty easy choice. Broncos, they're traveling to Miami. They're 6.5-point underdogs to the Dolphins. Broncos are 0-2. Dolphins are 2-0. And this total is set at 48. Reichel, who you like in this one?
Yeah, give me Miami at home. I'm not going to overthink this one. Miami, I know they played at night, but ended up beating New England by 7. Game was closer on the scoreboard than it actually was. Miami kind of dominated the game. Denver ended up getting torched offensively against Sam Howell, which we'll see once again how good that offense is going to be. But if Arizona does a better job of stopping that offense than your own team, I think you got problems defensively. Russell Wilson also was good for the first quarter and a half, then did nothing until the Hail Mary at the end of the game. So I'm not sold on either side of the ball for Denver. I'm also not sold on Sean Payton and Russell Wilson together. So I think that's going to be a problem moving forward. But Miami, I do think they're a little bit overrated based on how high people are power ranking them. But they're still significantly better than Denver. They're still a top 5, top 10 team in the league. They're at home. That helps. Give me Miami to win probably by 10+.
Tom?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this Denver defense is any good. They let Jimmy G light them up. They let Hal light them up. Tua and Tyreek Hill coming in here. I think they're going to have problems. Russell Wilson's overrated. I think they're going to have problems scoring the ball. I think they definitely win by double digits. It's open at 3.5. It's already at 6.5. I just see this line keep on moving up, and I'll take my 6.5 now.
Chris?
Yeah, as much as I hate to say it, because I'm definitely not a fan of the Miami Dolphins, I think that they're the better team here. Reichel touched on it. Russell Wilson, I think Bill Barnwell said was a top 10 quarterback in QBR in the first half of games, and then in the second half, his numbers are absolutely atrocious, even after that Hail Mary. You look at it, and they beat themselves, too, because you look at some of the penalties they had the other day. You had Kareem Jackson get ejected. You had offsides on a 3rd and 13. You had Pat Surtain get called for a pass interference call on 2nd and 15. You had a holding call that extended a drive. Vance Joseph, and they're blitzing a lot, but unfortunately, they're giving up a ton of plays that way. They got tortured by screen passes by Washington, and for some reason, Tua is actually throwing short passes now, and they're getting the running game involved. As much as I hate to say it, I don't trust Denver here. I'll take Miami to win. It'll probably end up over the total just because Miami's offense has looked very good the first couple of weeks, and Denver can't stop anyone.
Steehn?
Well, this just really comes down to what did the Broncos do well? Anything?
They lose well. Does that count?
Mason, can you, as a Broncos fan,
lose games.
Tell me what the Broncos do well.
They find ways to lose games late. That's the only thing. That's
okay.
There's seriously not their offensive line at times gave Russ a half a second to throw, but there's seriously, Scott, I'm not the guy to ask for any positives on the Denver Broncos right now.
Well, all right. On the flip side of that, what do the Dolphins do poorly? The defense is much improved. The offense is probably a top 3 unit in the league. I just think this is a mismatch worth a lot more than 6.5 points. I'm gonna ride with the crew here. I'm not going to be a contrarian in this one. This Broncos team has just shown absolutely nada. If you take away the first quarter and a half there in the last game, they look a lot like they did last year without the defense. I'll take the Dolphins minus 6.5.
Yep. I will I'm going to be hammering the Dolphins minus 6.5. I think the Broncos have no chance. I will also be, little side note, hammering Jalen Waddle to score an anytime touchdown. The Broncos, yes, they do have Pat Surtain on one side of the field, and yeah, he does a pretty good job. But they have Mathis on the other side of the field, another young corner. He's been getting absolutely exposed the first 2 weeks of the season. Waddle's going to have a field day against him if he's healthy and on the field. And I see him getting into the end zone. Now, our last early game of the day, the Colts are traveling to play the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's a minus 8-point favorite right now. That total's set at 44.5. Last game for us, Reichel. Who are you liking?
It's a bit tricky because I'm not sure who's going to be quarterback for the Colts in this game. Richardson self-diagnosed a concussion, and it turns out he was right. But you're looking at Minshew, who's pretty good in relief, which is the perks of having a veteran backup. But I know Baltimore did beat Cincinnati. I'm not sure how good Cincinnati actually is, so that jury's still out on that one. I think I'm going to lean to the Colts here, plus the points. I just think 8's too many. Baltimore offensively is fine. Defensively, they're okay, I guess. And the point is they find ways to win games, but they really don't do it in convincing fashion. The Colts have been decent so far this year, and once again, I think Minshew is more than a competent backup. I know a lot of people like Baltimore in this spot because they just beat Cincinnati and they're undefeated and they look good this season. But I think it's a few too many. I think the Ravens are going to win this game, but I do think that expecting them to win by more than a touchdown, when I do have consistent questions about the offense, the running game is a little bit weird because now Dobbins is hurt and you're using Gus Edwards in some weird combination there. I'm going to lean to the Colts. I think they hang in there. I think they lose, but it's close. Give me Baltimore by 4 or 6 points.
I like that. Tom?
Yeah, Minshew is good when he comes in as a backup, not so much when he's a starter. I personally like this Todd Monken offense for Lamar Jackson. Last 3 times they played each other, it's been a blowout by Baltimore. I certainly don't think this is too many points. I think they're going to put the smack down on them. Take as many as you can. Baltimore wins this game easily.
King?
Not sold on Baltimore. You look at the injuries, they didn't have Linderbaum. They didn't have Ronnie Stanley last week. You probably won't have them again this week, taking out a couple offensive linemen. They're banged up in the secondary. You saw OBJ get hurt the other day, too. They've relied a lot on Zay Flowers, and like Reichel said, you're dealing with Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, and neither one of those guys necessarily strike fear in the hearts of a defensive coordinator. Jim Irsay said yesterday that Richardson said he feels fine and he's clear and feeling a lot better, so the possibility is he could come back this week. You don't know. Minshew played well against Houston, 19 of 23, 171 yards and a touchdown in relief in that game. Now, sure, you could say Baltimore's a better defense than Houston, and nobody would argue that. But the fact is, the Ravens don't scare anyone, and they don't necessarily play as well as you would expect at home. Look at how they were last season, where they kept blowing leads in the second half of games at home. 8 points is a lot. I'll take the Colts and the points here.
Steamroller?
Yeah, the Ravens are a team that plays with their food a lot in games that they should blow out the others. They have a nasty habit of allowing the other team back in. I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to play the under 44.5. This is an Indy team. Regardless of who starts a quarterback, they're going to have to run the football to be successful. When they beat Houston, they averaged 5.5 yards per carry. When they lost to Jacksonville, they averaged 2.5 yards per carry. Baltimore giving up just 69 yards per game. On the ground, it's going to be a very stout run defense, and I think it's going to be a long day for the Colts offense for sure. We've documented the Baltimore challenges as far as injuries go and who's actually going to tote the rock. I think this one plays out to be an under 44.5.
I like that for my final play on this morning slate. I'm actually going to take the Ravens -8. I think that they're going to be able to come to this game. If Richardson does play, I'm going to trust Harbaugh's methods here. They've had a good defense the last few years, and I think they're going to come in here, make it tough for a rookie quarterback. And like I said, I think Lamar Jackson's he's ready to have a big year, and I think he's going to explode against this Colts team. So I'm going to take the Ravens -8, which wraps up our morning slate of games. It's an awesome little bit there. Thank you guys for doing that. Wanted to wish everyone good luck. I also wanted to remind everyone to head over to the website, check out our Twitter page. It's our new and improved Twitter page. Head over there and give us a follow. We also have our daily free pick articles, our Discord, and our TikTok rolling. And I wanted to give each and one of you a chance to let us know where you guys are, where you're posting all of your plays, all of your expert picks and best bets. I know we'll be looking at the primetime and late games on Sunday. So, Reichel, why don't you let us know what you're doing, where we can find you?
Yeah, so find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. It's written right beneath me. But you can find all my podcasts there. Also doing daily picks, obviously, for the Winners and Whiners YouTube page. So find me at those 2 spots if you want some free picks.
Tom?
Sweet. Yeah, so I'm at Reichel on all social media. Tom Macrina over at Winners and Whiners. You could also find me in the Discord, Winners and Whiners Discord. I drop plays in there all the time as well.
King?
Betting Royalty at twitter.com. It's right there, or X or whatever they call it now. You find me at Winners and Whiners all the time, and on Saturday mornings, just parlays with myself because there's nobody else.
I'll crash your show one of these weeks. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you keep saying that.
Yeah, I know. I forgot about it.
So early in the morning, man.
Well, it wasn't me who picked that time slot.
Well,
no, for me because I wake up at like 3 in the afternoon. Not for college football, though. I make an exception on college football Saturdays.
That's not good.
Steamroller, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on X at Steamroller. I don't do a lot of free plays these days. I've got another job within the Winners and Whiners family that kind of keeps me busy, so I'm not dropping a lot of free plays. I do still sell some premiums if you want to check those out over at Winners and Whiners, and I do a little YouTube show with my son that we have a lot of fun. We talk about a little football there. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, I usually drop the link in there on Saturday night or early Sunday morning. You can check out our thoughts on a few more NFL games as well. So
Perfect. Thank you, guys. And like I said earlier, my name is Mason Folz. You can find me on Whiners and Whiners. I've got my premium picks, my best bet packages. And you can also find me on X at Mason Folz. Pretty simple there. Posting some picks every day, talking sports, and looking to have a good time. My final reminder before we let you guys go, before you start attacking tonight's Thursday night game, today's promo code for this video is JF5EWW25, and that'll get you 25% off all those best bet deals. Thank you guys so much for coming and checking out this Whiners and Whiners 2023 NFL show. Have a great week 3, and we can't wait to see you next Thursday.